Hello, I'm Alan Newton. I'm coming live from somewhere on the planet. It's up to you to guess where. And today I'm having a conversation with Sonal Saveni, who is an entrepreneur and founder of Table and Gallery in New Haven, Connecticut. Hello, Sonal.
Hello, Alan, and thank you so much for having me.
So what an inspiration that your table and gallery has been in the local market, but not just locally, but also to people who've been following your journey around the world on LinkedIn and other social media. It's been great for me to see your growth and how this has progressed over actually quite a short period of time. But where did it all start? What was the seedling of the idea?
I have to say, the seedling of the idea was when you had made that recommendation to read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And I have that book with me right now. So, in a nutshell, it was uncovering your true self, going back to you, because you cannot pour from an empty vessel. So it's pouring back into yourself. And this book had the ingredients to do on a weekly basis on how you can get back to your own self. And it's a lot of it is, self-care that leads up to being your creative self.
So
Don't you agree, Alan?
I do agree. It's a wonderful book, and it was one of the things that the author Julia says at the end of the book, asks you to promise to her as a reader, and if you have participated through it, is to share it with somebody else. And so it was shared with me, and I was very thankful to the person who shared it with me because of how it helped me. And in discussions with you and knowing more about your background in terms of art and film and how you uh, educate children and some of the different charity projects you're interested in, and just some of the little things you said. I thought, I wonder if you've read this book, if you've heard of it. And I remember asking you, and you went, "Oh, that sounds interesting." Now, what would you say? You just talked there about sort of finding your way back to yourself, and you talked about creativity. What would you say for you was the fundamental premise of the book that Julia Cameron through the course is trying to help people with?
I think one of the fundamental premises knowing your self-worth and knowing your value. And when you know yourself and what you have to offer, you're going to share it with the world. And with that comes confidence, self-esteem, and discovering what your true passion is.
Okay. And so for you, thinking about those things, where had it maybe gone wrong, if that's the right word? Where had you maybe been led astray from the path? Given the fact that you are such a creative, artistic person that's had a lot of success in film and other areas previously.
Well, first, I didn't get back into painting until after I finished The Artist's Way, which was 2 years ago. So over a decade, I did not paint because I was not in an environment that nourished that creativity. If anything, it suppressed my creativity. And then what happened was I also became a shadow artist. And I didn't understand what a shadow artist was until I opened up the book and there was a chapter describing a shadow artist. And a shadow artist is someone that is in the shadows of other artists, that's working behind the scenes and helping the other artists shine while they're being outshined from who they truly are, what their gifts are, what their talents are. And and I realized I was helping others more than I was helping myself. And that's how I became depleted. I became empty and, just almost at a point where I was just lifeless. And when I realized that I was performing um, under the same characteristics as a shadow artist and losing myself for other people's, talents and gifts and promoting other people, then I realized like, wait, I also do have a gift. I also do have a talent and I need to really put more emphasis on supporting myself putting more confidence into my work and myself and saying, I can do this. I can come out of the shell. And yeah.
That's marvelous. And so how have you switched that around in terms of what you're doing now with the table and gallery? And what was the journey between sort of
So
learning the artist's way and then sort of where you are now?
so for me, to undo all of the blocks of not being able to paint, not being able to be creative was healing from it first. So foremost, I had to heal and accept that, okay, it did happen. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm not going to kick myself that I lost a decade of not creating and say, I've been given this book and the resources and exercises that I can do to pour back into myself. And one of it was taking yourself on an artist date. And you're the first one that mentioned artist dates. And I'm like, what the bloody date, And I thought you had to go on a date with the different artists.
Who would have been your choice? Anybody dead or alive? If that actually was the artist.
Oh, oh wow, that's a good question. It sounds crazy, but have I would be really curious to have a glass of wine and dinner with Van Gogh.
Mm.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting character. But I taking myself on artist dates. I was like, this is marvelous. This is amazing. It's like, who's the best person you could hang out with is me. The best person you could trust is yourself. Um, so yeah, that was really, an eye opener to learn about. And growing up, I was not taught that you should focus on self-love. It was like, what is self-love? You sacrifice for others. So this book was all about loving yourself and really nourishing your soul and yourself and your spirit, mind, body, everything. And when you do that, you're able to give more. And when you're able to give more, you're able to learn more and align with the right people that are going to help you grow. And it becomes like an uplifting experience all around. And that transformed me. And as a result, it gave birth to the table and gallery. And, the conversation was, I want to look for my creative clusters. That came up in the book. So I want to find my creative clusters. Oh, lo and behold, I have found my creative clusters.
Wait, of those creative clusters, and you don't necessarily have to name the person, but who's been the most surprising to you, and how are you learning from them?
Who's been the most surprising? I have to say all of them have been surprising.
Okay.
There's not one creative that has not surprised me in one way, shape, or form, that has not given me insight into seeing something from a different perspective. Each creative has opened up a door of different opportunities, different way of looking at things, different lenses to look at things. It's been so insightful. It's just learning nonstop and having those aha moments that, I kid you not, happens on, if not on a daily basis, on an everyday basis, every other day basis. Yeah, I think every creative has brought something to the table, quite literally, has brought something to the table where I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Fascinating. So let's talk a little bit about creativity, because I think when the word creative or creatives is used, people, and certainly some people in my circle, tend to just instantly think of, painting or writing music or maybe writing a novel or a film. Um, and you can understand why a lot of us would think that. But actually, when you think more broadly, creativity comes in many forms. It can be from problem solving, it could be teaching and education, and the way a teacher maybe devises and designs a class to get the information across to a student in a way that allows them to learn. So they need to be sort of creative in their thinking and class design. Gardening and landscaping, entrepreneurialism. So there's many different ways, but another key one is cooking and culinary skills, and that's something that you've embraced very much as part of your concept there. So do you want to sort of tell us more about that thought process and how you blended these two things together in terms of the table and the gallery?
So, as an artist and a filmmaker, I grew up in the hospitality industry, and the kitchen is what I know. When, as a serial entrepreneur, when I found this space, I wanted to focus solely on the gallery and the filmmaking side of the business. But realistically, as an entrepreneur, have to pay the rent, have to pay electricity. And it came with a kitchen, and I said, okay, how am I going to overcome my PTSD and go back into the kitchen and change a narrative and turn it into a safe space? And that's where personal development came into play. I said, what did I do to really nourish myself and, inspire myself? And that was putting all of these ingredients together. And for me, having a safe space where creatives can come and showcase their talents and abilities for the world to see, for the world to understand, learn, and, be inspired from. So for me, going back into the kitchen was now, okay, painting saved me. It brought me back to my true essence of who I am. Now, how is the kitchen going to transform me and have me approach the culinary side of the business in a different way? And I said, you know what? I'm going to be the first guinea pig. My first art exhibition, I showcased my art. The prominent colors of the work was gold. So I went to the kitchen and I said, okay, I'm going to create a dining experience that's going to highlight the prominent colors in my artwork. So I said, okay, what makes the color gold? And then I'm looking at all the ingredients around me and I see saffron, I see turmeric. And then I just start playing with all of these natural sources of color. And I look at the plate and I said, you know what? This is going to be my canvas and I'm going to turn it into a work of art. And I was able to put my shoulders down, not be stressed, and really be in that Zen moment where it felt good because I had now just created a safe space for myself internally and externally. And I was able to transform that dish, those ingredients into something delicious, but also something pretty and beautiful to look at as well.
Okay. And how has that concept evolved beyond sort of your initial, because obviously you're showcasing the art of other people. So is the food always sort of um following that same concept every time, and the menus
So,
evolving and changing around the new artists?
so I do have a staple menu. So I do have, a regular menu for daytime hours, but then I do push a tasting menu. And I'm very blessed and grateful that I have a team of chefs. And I said, okay, we're going to highlight what food inspired you, your culture, your heritage. And I do 5 tasting menus a month. But then I also, whoever's the exhibiting artist, I sit down with them and I said, okay, what food inspired you? What food influenced you? And what nourished your soul during that creative process? So I'm actually not just talking about art, but I'm talking about, okay, what's your background? What were the foods that you actually were eating when you were creating the art? Because I know that when I'm painting, I'm starving and I don't want to eat. But then what is the go-to food that, what is your comfort food? Because food does play a vital role in our overall well-being. We can't live without it. And it's also the universal love language. So hence the name, the table and gallery. The table is where everyone congregates and comes together. And I always like to tell everyone there's no starving artist here.
What do you think? I love that. It just it feels so synchronous. The book is quite a spiritual book actually. Um,
Yeah.
and in many ways it's nourishment for the soul once you've been through the process, and you've talked a lot about it, how you sort of rediscover yourself, you come back to yourself, and that life force, I think Julia Cameron talks about. And obviously in spiritual circles, people talk about that life force, that energy that we all have that quite often gets blocked. Um, and how you've brought it sort of full circle with the element of food, which is obviously nourishment for our bodies as well as our minds. Um, what do you think Julia Cameron would think of this story?
Believe it or not, I actually did send her an email. Remember I told you, Alan, I sent her
Yeah,
an email saying, can you be a guest speaker at the table and gallery?
yeah.
Haven't hit that quota yet. Her fees are a bit up there, but maybe one day she will come here. But I did. I sent her an email. And I told her it's because of your book that I was able to do this. And yeah.
I'm not sure how active she still is because I know that this book is 25 years old now.
Oh,
Longer.
she is active. She does workshops and everything.
Okay, you're more knowledgeable.
Yeah. Remember, come on, I told you she's doing a workshop. Do you want to jump on?
Did you? My memory is not as good as
Yeah. And I have to say, when you're doing something you love, you just keep going. You're at it all the time.
yeah, you find the energy from nowhere. But suddenly exhaustion is just not it's not part of the makeup. Yeah, you find that energy.
And she mentions that in the book that when you finally tap into your creative element, you are going to be endlessly persevering and pursuing your passion, even having 2 hours of sleep.
Yes, actually, that sort of reminds me, and I'd actually noted down the page here um about the importance of enthusiasm. As I went through the book, there were certain paragraphs or words that I highlighted. Actually, not as many as I thought. But on page 153 of the copy that I have, which differs from what you've got, as we found out when we were
No, but you know what? I purchased the book, so I'll open up page 153,
yeah, 153. Is that about enthusiasm?
153, enthusiasm. It don't mean a thing if it ain't got that
Are
swing.
you mocking my British accent, Solon?
Well, I'm British as well.
Partly. Yeah. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit more about your quite mixed background and how that has helped you and maybe even hindered you before we go back to enthusiasm?
Well, I grew up in the UK, and I have to say, with a combination of London, Leicester, Bram, I have a mixed British accent, don't I?
You sound
Do
like
I?
an American doing a British accent.
American. Come on, Alan. I'm gonna edit that out. Let me fix it. All right. Oh, I was talking to myself in British all morning. I said, I'm gonna get back on track and I'm gonna speak in my British accent. I still say H. That's the only difference. Americans don't say H.
What do
How do
they
you
say?
say H, Sakura? H. H. I
H,
say H.
H. They say H.
Yeah,
The difference with
exactly.
an
That's
A.
the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Okay.
But come on, I don't sound British to you.
You sound, you know when Americans are in the movies and they've been cast as a British person and they do the accent. That's exactly
Oh,
how you sound.
even
Uh,
if I say bloody
I have
hell.
friends in Los Angeles and Orange County who quite often mimic, and that's exactly how they sound.
All right, I'm long overdue. I still have my British passport,
Good.
so I'm still a Brit.
One of the things Julia says in the book is like the conditioning anyway of all of our societies and how we are all creative. In fact, one of the people I love the most, who's sadly no longer with us, but he's from my home city of Liverpool, a guy called Ken Robinson. He says creativity is as important as literacy. And he still has
Wow.
the most popular TED talk ever. So he's had over 77.3 million views.
Can you
And
send that to me?
yeah, it's and where's the do schools kill creativity is the question and the topic of his talk.
That I have so many self-help books in the kitchen than cookbooks. And the artist and the artist way is one of them. I'm like, these are all the books I have, and you cannot get to where you want to go if you don't understand how to create within yourself, that internal blueprint, what you're meant to design in the world. Does that make sense?
Oh, but to me, 100%. I think, you need to continually work on yourself. It is life work. Anybody who thinks they're complete is kidding themselves, really. Um, and the more we work on ourselves, the more things open up, actually. The more we understand ourselves, the more we can tap into that creativity. We can achieve and do things that we really didn't, because of a lot of that negative programming, we told ourselves we couldn't. And that's one of the key exercises in the book, actually. Julia asks us to identify the negative thought patterns and to call ourselves out on them. So over the period of a week is through different exercises is to sort of note some of these things down. And I think there's like 12 or 16 bullet points where she says initially, right, off the top of your head, think about some of those negative thought patterns that most regularly come up, and and then be aware of them in the next week and correct your language, because even the way you think, I know from there was an example the other week. There's a very British thing because we're quite pessimistic, where if you ask somebody how they are, they won't go, "Oh yeah, I'm great, I'm good." They'll go, "Yeah, not bad." Now, it's quite amusing in a way, but actually when you really dissect it and look at the science and the thought patterns, is you're sort of not in a positive frame of mind there. And the other week, and I've been more focused on this, is I've been more focused on saying, yeah, I'm great, I'm really good. And it completely changes your perspective. It seems a really small incidental thing. It really isn't. And if you sort of get into the habit of doing that more regularly across many different aspects of your life and changing the way the thoughts first occur in your brain, it really does change things quite markedly. So they're interesting exercises. As you know, it's a very valuable book, and that's just a small example.
No, and I think it's not just writing your goals down, but hearing yourself speak your goals. And
Mm.
for me, when someone asks me, "How are you doing?" my response is, "I'm living the dream." Sometimes I say it sarcastically, but when I hear myself say I'm living the dream, it's a reminder that I had this one opportunity to live this life that I finally get to design on my own terms and live it the way I want to live it on my own terms without having anybody to dictate or, be over me saying this is what you should be doing. It's there comes a big responsibility with that. You're holding yourself accountable. But like I said, you know, being creative, every entrepreneur needs that element of being creative because you're constantly solving problems. But I think we all need it. I mean, that's how we survived during the, times when we were in caves. We were trying to be creative on how we fed ourselves through hunting. So it's no different than it is today. You just have to be creative on how you hunt so you can feed yourself and not lose yourself in the process. But my question to you, Alan, is how do you think that this book is the be all end all in unblocking your block?
Not necessarily. I think it's one of a number of good tools. It provides you with habits and practices that allow you to peel back the layers of that onion and to rewire your brain from however you've been conditioned or programmed. And that takes a lot of work and effort, and it needs to be consistent, like anything in life. So if you're going to achieve anything, consistency is the key thing. Sometimes, when you were just talking about designing your life and that you're living your dream, doing so doesn't mean to say it's easy. You will quite often think you're stuck in the mud or you're in wading through treacle. You'll have bad days as well as good days and inconsistent days. That's just part of the rich tapestry of life. But this is a very, very good starting point. It's a good way to get you thinking in a different way. It's a good way to create habits and exercises that are new that if you're consistent with will start to make a difference. And like I sometimes do and sometimes don't describe myself as a creative person. I'm sort of I think I'm creative in terms of the way I think. As you know, I'm writing and I have some novels and ideas that I'm writing around, and I think that's where my creativity lies. You encourage me to paint. I did paint a little bit or draw more at school, but I never felt I was talented in that way, certainly compared to some of the other students. And part of my problem there is I quite often have ideas, but don't have the ability to execute in that area. But it's about when it comes to creativity, knowing where your strengths are and directing them, but also not being fearful of just having a go. So
Mm.
I started painting and it was almost quite meditative for me. It was like warm. It was last summer, I think, or the summer before you encouraged me to do it. And I thought, really? And you went, no, go on, just have a go. So I went and bought some, paint and brushes and quite a few canvases. And I didn't know, I didn't have a clue. I was thinking, what am I going to paint? And strangely, ideas just come to me. And I think by the end of about 2 months, I'd painted about 9 or 10 pictures and
Nah, good for you.
I shared I didn't share them with many people. I obviously shared them with you because you'd encouraged me to do it. And in a way, I felt quite embarrassed because of the kind of level of talent you've got. And then some of
Oh,
what
please.
it was like,
Oh, please. You have to impress yourself. I mean, I just started sharing on social media my artwork, and I'm like, because I fell into that trap of being a shadow artist again. I said, wait a minute, I need to really promote myself and my work now because it's actually leaving an imprint on many other people. So why not keep doing it and encouraging and inspiring others to do the same? So do it for yourself.
mm,
Don't do it for anybody else. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Do it for yourself. If it makes you happy, that's all that matters.
yeah, true. And I haven't done anything for a while, but I did go and buy some more canvases like about a month ago, thinking, oh, the summer's coming. There's going to be warm evenings where I don't want to sit in front of the TV, and I have got writing to do. But I thought, I might start painting. I haven't yet, but I probably will again, and that will be fun. It'll be a way to switch off, from the
Nice.
craziness of being a tech founder and having a million and one other projects and sort of personal growth stuff to do. As you know, I'm an avid reader as well, and yeah, sometimes it's about juggling what I want to do for that evening. But anyway, back to enthusiasm, which was a key point, and on page 153, enthusiasm from the Greek "filled with God" is an ongoing energy supply tapped into the flow of life itself. Enthusiasm is grounded in play, not work. Far from being a brain-numbed soldier, our artist is actually our child within, our inner playmate. As with all playmates, it is joy, not duty, that makes for a lasting bond. So I really love that. And I think that speaks to sort of what we were just talking about and your encouragement for me to paint. It's for myself and it's part of connecting with that inner child and playing rather than
Mm,
being a sense of duty, which for
yes.
me, writing and obviously my entrepreneurial endeavors and sometimes reading where I'm trying to acquire more knowledge, they for me actually quite often feel like a sense of duty rather than actual play. So actually the artistry in terms of painting, even though it's not art in my eyes, but um, that is more play and connecting with my inner child.
You need to, and it's that critique that you need to demolish that critique. Send the critique to the cave. But yes, it's having that childlike vibe, childlike mentality, and being able to take out from our daily rituals of duty, of constantly giving and fulfilling our day-to-day tasks and pulling back and say, hey, I want to play, you know, and making that playtime for yourself. We did it growing up as children,
We did.
but it
It's very natural.
and it's very natural, but then the bills start kicking in and then you're like, oh shit, I gotta, keep up with all of this. And the same thing happens to me. I'm trying to keep up with all of this. And then I pull myself back and said, no, I need to paint. I need to, I need to have playtime, fun time, bring yourself back to your true essence of why you're here. So
Powerful. What would you say was one of the key tasks or habits that were formed in the book for you that really made a big difference?
I think it was the morning pages. So it was like, you have to write 3 pages every morning. And even if you had nothing to write, doodle. So I kept at it, and it was just like vomiting out everything, that had happened to me the day before, weeks before, anything that just made me angry or happy, just like pouring it out. And it's like you're just taking everything out from inside of your brain, and then it's like you start your day fresh. I was like, this is brilliant. I just took everything out, and now I can start my day. What about you?
The same for me, actually, but partly because I'm writing a fantasy fiction series, and I had so much of it in my head. And sort of one of the rules around morning pages was as soon as you wake up, you grab a pen and just write. So it's I think I remember the phrase she said before your editor wakes up. So before your
Yeah.
rational thinking brain wakes up, and it's like a stream of consciousness. Now, in truth, did it always feel like that? No, but some mornings it did. Some mornings, I'd wake up and I'd write 4 or 5 pages, and I was like, wow,
Mm,
I hadn't even really thought about what I was writing. And you look back, now
yeah.
I look back, and it's interesting as well because I've done I really like Carl Jung and a lot of his work and dream analysis. So I've been through sort of similar processes of just waking up and scribbling down, and it's amazing what you remember in terms of the dream when you do that. But this was quite different because I wasn't focusing on dreams. It was this stream of consciousness. And so it's allowed me to write a lot of the book in many facets. And what I'm doing now is going back and highlighting what's relevant to the book and sort of transferring that now into like sort of a word processor document to then organize it. So yeah, for me that was really powerful. But also because I do a lot of personal growth and introspection, it's quite interesting to just see what was on my mind and what was I thinking about and how was I thinking about problem solving. But all of it actually allowed me to be more creative in my day-to-day work in terms of problem solving and in terms of the business, in terms of coming up with ideas for creative campaigns that we were doing at the time and sharing them with colleagues and then refining things around that. Maybe even feeding some of it into ChatGPT was quite new at the time. So then sort of utilizing that to sort of almost bounce some of my ideas off that and sort of allow that to curate them a little bit further, which was quite an interesting sort of divergent point. Although you got to be very careful with your use of AI there as a creative. But I think, if you've got the seedling of an idea and then she's sort of wanting to just, like you might do with a human, bounce some ideas off to allow you to sort of expand on that idea, then it's probably okay. So yeah, morning pages for me, but the artist dates also. Because that allowed me, I'm an introvert, so like going and sitting on my own in public, I never used to go and like go out for a meal on my own. I mean, even living in London, where it's quite necessary a lot of the time. I do that all the time now, but sitting in a theater or the opera or the ballet on my own,
Wow.
quite weird. I started like creating stories of what other people thought of me sat on my own, which is just ridiculous, but sometimes how the brain works. And then you just get used to it and you overcome it. You don't really pay that much attention to other people. You're sort of more focused on what's going on the stage.
Mm,
And I started to learn a lot more, and some of it actually because so much mythology is played out on the stage, and I was sort of studying mythology for my books. All of it actually sort of nicely blended together and started to give me some
nice.
ideas. So those two things in particular were really useful.
Nice. So you definitely are living the same recipes on a daily basis. What would you say, 2 years? Has it been 2 years?
Has it been 2 years? Where are we? Late 2024. Yeah, it might have even been, no, it was early 2022. So just over 2 years, I think.
Yeah. So we're going strong.
Yeah. Can you
We've
remember
uncovered
how, can you remember how the first conversation manifested?
the first conversation manifested with you showing me elephants, and you said you collect orphaned elephants. And I said, where are the orphaned elephants? And you're like, here, here's an orphan elephant. And I said, oh. That's where it started from. Two people trying to find their way. And I looked at it that here are two souls trying to come out from, I want to say, a dark period and trying to help the other. And the way you helped me was recommending this book because I was literally quite, at that time, was trying to crawl my way out, but I just didn't have the right resources or, the right people. And at that time, I was trying to build the right environment, the right people that would nourish my growth, but I just did not know how to start it. So finding you and you recommending this book was one of the most vital steps I took to get to where I am now. So for me to sit here 2.5 years later and say, hey, Mr. Allen, we're going to go back and we're going to refer to this book because this is where it all started. This is what led me to create this table and gallery. And now it's a safe space for creatives to come and showcase their talent. And it makes me proud and honored to have this conversation with you and to share it with everybody else.
Wow. I mean, that's very humbling just from an initial conversation where we'd met on LinkedIn. We had some similarities. I think I was actually doing some sales outreach that was automated. I think we sort of worked out, and
I was like, what does he want?
you've been sort of wrapped into it and actually didn't quite fit the profile, which was quite interesting. So and then yeah, we had an initial Zoom call. We had some similar interests, particularly around sort of well, I won't go into all of that because otherwise I'll have to start talking about my product and stuff. But we had some shared interests and I think definitely some shared values. And yeah, I can't remember the elephant conversation, but I do mention that from time to time
Well,
because
we definitely addressed the elephant in the room on the first day.
that because I had an elephant behind me on the I can't remember.
No,
No,
no, it was
just come up.
like I said, we definitely addressed the elephant in the room on the very first day, and then went, straight towards the artist way, and then said, hey, let's start doing these exercises, which led to us just touching base and saying, hey, what week are you on? And are you doing the following exercise? So we were holding each other accountable
Mm,
on this journey.
which
And that
was
was so important. It was so important. Otherwise, we would have just looked at the book and it would have just sat on the coffee table and that's it. But the fact that we actually touched base with one another and said, okay, I'm on this week. Did you finish this week yet? Or and then doing the Trello was so, so powerful. It was like a log of our milestones of what we started to create and what had been created. And then I pulled the plug.
I still have a Trello myself.
I was like, I'm Trelloed out here now. I'm actually living this loud and clear. And yeah, I'm living my real life Trello right now as we speak. But yeah, so it's funny because I did a Trello board with my intern. She's quietly sitting. She's the one that put this artwork together. But I'm really surprised that I'm getting responses from all over the world, and it's just really humbling. It's like, how did you find me? You know? And how we're going to ship your work here. So it's just it's humbling, but at the same time, I have a responsibility to, make sure that I live up to not only their expectations, but the expectations of the table and gallery. Yeah. And the goal is to merge established artists with local artists who are up and coming, just like Sakura is, so everyone can learn from one another. And yeah, so it's just yeah, I can't believe it. Can't believe, I'm at this part of my journey.
Fabulous. Well, that sounds like a good place to finish.
Well, thank you, Mr. Allen, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Sonal. Good to speak to you. Good to catch up. And what is one thing you'd like to leave the audience with before we go?
Oh God.
The power of collaboration is a big thing that's come through here, as having the support of somebody else, going through it together, holding each other's hands. So one, you've got to be prepared to do the work yourself. You know, um, there's the old expression, you can take a horse to water, but so you got to be prepared to do the work in the first place. But if you can get somebody who's also interested, who's supportive, I've been surprised at the amount of people I've actually mentioned this book to, that they knew about it, and yet they've never mentioned it. It was, and I don't know in what way that necessarily impacted their lives, but most of them seem pretty positive about it. So yeah,
Yeah, and
the
I think,
collaboration.
yeah, you nailed it. Having a network of supportive resources around you, having the right support network, the right people to help you, guide you, assist you, letting you know that you're not alone. And, you know, anyone and everyone can come through it and out of it. And I think what you just said was just the perfect way to end it, having the right network around you. Yeah.
You, Sonal.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.